We used to build organizations as machines. Why? Because we would understand cause and effect. Because the world was less volatile. We would understand we have a system, we have a few components, we have inputs and outputs, we have a market that I can predict, we have people that I can predict, and therefore I can create an organization that does what I want it to do. It's understandable and manageable. This is the way we used to look at organizations. Now we live in a different world. So the world is more complex, it's more volatile. There's more things happening. There's more unpredictability. Sometimes the cause and effect is not very clear anymore. We are facing volatile markets. We are facing people that are much more heterogeneous now than they used to be, and our organizations have to navigate that. So nowadays, when we think of organizations, we think of learning organizations or evolving organizations. So we want to allow for the organization to answer to the new and old constraints and shape its subcomponents of the system to the needs of the actual context. Right? So we as organization developers, as HR, as founders, we have to lean into the idea of hybrid organizations. Organizations are not one org chart anymore. They're complex and different and heterogeneous, and we have to navigate that. So what does that look like in particular? There's 3 types of organizational forms that are popular. You have the pyramid structure and you have the matrix structure. Pyramid structure, you have a simple organization that you divide into some certain divisions. The division can be product, it can be function or market. Product, function, or market, right? Then you have the matrix structure if you want to do 2 of those. Typically, you have function or product and market. These 2 types of organization are managed through sizable middle management. The challenges that they come with is that they are siloed and bureaucratic. The benefits of it, it's simple to understand and manage and lead, right? In the last few years, we had also more circular structure organizational experiments out there. Some organizations went to even as far as having completely circular structures, maybe even holacratic models. Some of you are familiar maybe with the Spotify model, for example, agile organizational models. So these organizations were focused and structured around cross-functional teams with a leaner middle management. It turned out that it's very difficult to navigate and manage and lead an organization that is fully lean and fully circular. Many organizations who have tried it are going back to what I think is the new normal of organizations, which is a hybrid setup. So every division, every team will end up working the way they need to work, independently to what the previous structure was, independently from the centralized option, independently from the legacy, but more towards thinking, what is my context, what are my challenges, what are my needs, and what is the right format for us, right? So this is the new normal, and what is happening in this new normal? We have to dance. We have to dance a dance between finding standardization and finding relevance and individualization, right? So we have to find moments in the organization where we go back to standardization to increase quality management, to standardize, to create economies of scale, because all of these things are valuable and have merit. Economies of scale and standardizations have merit as well. But of course, relevance and speed of action also. So there is no right way. Sometimes we need to be more leaning towards speed and individual setup of my team. Sometimes we want to go back and agree a little bit and calibrate towards the center again and create a standard. It's a dance. There is no right, there is no wrong. It will be a constant dance between these 2 benefits, standardization and individualization of your team's operating model. This dance will be. And this is, by the way, this is what change management is changing. Change management is actually doing this dance. This is the change management. It's actually dancing your way through these 2 different ambitions in your organization. For me, leaders who want to really create future-proof organizations have to learn to dance the dance. So let's do that. Let's learn to dance the dance. But to learn to dance the dance, we have to learn how to talk even about organizational processes, how to talk about how anything works in our organization. So we have an organization that operates on in three different dimensions. Yeah? We have structure, we have process, and we have people. So structure, what is it? It is our org chart. It is our P&L structure. It is the way we organize our formal decision-making committees, maybe with your board, for example. Yeah? So this stuff is hard-coded. It's explicit. You can document it somewhere, and you can, on the first day of a new employee, onboard somebody and know what the org chart is and what the committees are. Easy done, right? Process, that's the value chain of an organization. Now we're talking about IT processes, we're talking about business processes, we're talking about HR processes that are to a certain degree hard-coded, right? Also here, it's relatively easy to understand, to articulate, to onboard, but also it's easy to change because you know what you have and you can change it. It's resource intense to change it, but it is doable. The cause and effects of this are pretty clear, right? People, of course, that's not the case. People are not behaving the same at all in your organization, and it's difficult for us to anticipate and predict what's going to happen if I move from A to B, if I create certain program, if I change my product, if I rearrange our org chart. So any kind of behavior in the people's part of the people dimension is difficult to anticipate. It's not impossible, but it is difficult. It's soft-coded. Sometimes it's explicit, and we have principles and practices that help us articulate the way we work. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes it is implicit, and we haven't even learned to articulate that, right? So this is what we have to learn. I want to give you a couple of examples. Again, flashy examples, but you will see what I mean when you see them. So 3 teams: finance, research or science, and anything else in business. Any generic well, all-rounder team in business, right? If I give you one task, hey, here's a situation, we have a certain idea, we've been talking about something, and now I'm asking you, please write a business plan. I don't say anything else. Team 1 will create an Excel sheet. Team 2 will create a Word document, and Team 3 will create a PowerPoint document. Nobody's wrong, nobody's right. It's their way of doing things. The finance people, they think in Excel sheets. The science people, they think in Word documents. And the business people think in PowerPoint documents. So here's the thing. It's not right, not wrong, but fundamentally different. The output that each team delivers is on another planet. I see business plans every day, and I tell you, whatever document format it comes with dramatically changes the output, the understanding, the quality, if it's thought true or not, all of it, between Word and PowerPoint, dramatically different. So that matters a lot for me to understand how we operate. Just a simple example. I'll give you another example. Deadline behavior. Let's just say I'm a new leader in an organization, and we've been in a project together, and we plan a project, we plan its deadlines. I don't know the teams yet. What I might find out that this team and this team both have a deadline, but one team will do everything possible, humanly possible, to meet the deadline. That's their culture. If it's required to get the job done, they will stay in the office until midnight. Work. Rihanna knows best. But there's also another Rihanna. Another team might just say, no. I'm not judging which one is right or which one is wrong, but it's the culture of that team that is sometimes easy to anticipate and sometimes not. And that's what makes leadership hard, because we cannot always anticipate everything. And this is what we have to learn if we want to change the people system within an organization. We have to learn to diagnose and articulate these things, right? So how do we do that? If you're in HR, you've seen this before. Culture, principles, and practices. Yeah? And it's an increasing concreteness to this. Right? Culture is the implicit ways of working and behavior. Right? Implicit ways of working and behavior. Principles are articulated values and beliefs that form courses of action when certain thing happens. And practices are very concrete, specific actions and methods to apply in concrete situations. So some examples, I already said culture, what is it? It could be the social dynamics. It could be the default to a document format. It could be a default to maybe a meeting format. It could be deadline pressure on how we handle that, right? Everything here is culture, and we have probably not articulated that. Principles could be information sharing, decision making, HR policies. So we have articulated them. They are not very concrete, but they give us guidance, right? Information sharing. Maybe we have a principle articulated that says, by default, we want to be transparent as possible. In another organization, maybe they don't have that, and financial plans are it's closed up to many people in the organization. Many scale-ups have full transparency towards their the journey towards fundraising the next round. Other scale-ups have not told their staff, their team, the status of their fundraising, and they will come with facts, but not take them on the journey. Again, I'm not judging what's right or what's wrong. I'm just saying there's different ways to handle, and principles really form your decision-making, form your information sharing, form the way you operate in your team. Then there's practices. This is much more concrete now. Maybe you're using Scrum. Maybe you are using OKRs. Maybe you have a certain project management tool. Maybe you have a people management tool. You have a CRM. You have a certain performance management mechanism. So there's much more concrete things behind the practices. So culture, principles, and practices together with the other two dimensions of structure and process form your operating system, right? The interesting thing, or the hard thing about operating system is though that you have multiple different shades of it that you are in yourself. You probably have one operating system with the team you work on a daily basis. There's one way you work. You have one way. You have one culture, one principle and practices, some of which are also for the rest of the organization, but some of it will be very specific to this team. But then, if you're a manager, you also have your manager peers. There's one way to discuss and share and collaborate and operate with the managers. Your horizontal peers, your horizontal operating system. So at minimum, you have a vertical operating system and you have a horizontal operating system. Probably you are even in more cross-functional task forces, you have even more operating systems. That's why this is very, very hard, right? An innovative manager champions this operating system. A manager or a transformer, a transformation leader who wants to get anything done in the dimension of people will have a better chance of success when they learn to articulate the operating system. Right? So this is a canvas that we made. There's many different operating system canvases out there. None of them is great, including ours. It's very difficult to do. I'm trying to figure out how to do this easier. But it's good enough for a first try. However, this is some advanced level work. This is not easy to do. Because answering the questions at first sound abstract, then sound easy, and then become very difficult. Right? So everybody who does operating system work goes through a certain journey here. Yeah? So let me give you our specific operating system is divided into strategy, performance, people, and structure. It's 16 questions that they all start with how. It's never what. It's how do we do something. And if you answer these 16 questions, you know how your organization operates. But it's very hard. How do we set goals? How do we develop our strategy? How do we align on goals and strategy? So far, so good. How do we shift priorities? What happens when our plan doesn't work? Performance. How do we manage operations and projects? How do we collaborate? How do we distribute accountability? Try to get that answered. How do we facilitate feedback loops? Not between people, but with the organization. Remember, we want to create a learning organization. We have to have feedback loops with the organization. People. How do we manage people? How do we motivate talent? How do we develop talent? And how do we navigate conflicts? Structure. How do we form teams and budgets? How do we nurture communities that are needed, especially in complex organizations? How do we facilitate innovation, and how do we navigate or lead change? If you answer all of these, you're on a good journey. So the way I work with this, you will not be able to simply just answer them. You have to go into a diagnosis journey. You have to learn, you have to analyze it, you have to diagnose all of these questions, fields. That's number one, that's step number one. Then after analysis and diagnosis, you articulate that. Then you have the as is. If you're an old school consultant, you think in as is and to be. For a good reason, because if you want to change something towards a to be, it's much easier to start at the as is. If you don't know what the as is, it's difficult to go to the to be. Consultant lingo, sorry about that. But it's really important to be able to articulate the as is. So articulate it by filling out this canvas or any other one. Design the structure, the principle, the practice that you want. Change it, facilitate the change, which will take some time. Then actually lead in the process, and then, of course, rinse and repeat. That's how we build high performance through championing the operating system.